your food stamps run out. Yeah, there are opportunities. There are times when that is warranted to file bankruptcy. However, you have to make sure you look at yourself and you change the negative habit, because how many people know that if you're in the middle of the ocean and if you have a hole in your boat and you're drowning, it does not matter if you have enough buckets and enough pumps to take all the water out the boat unless you plug the hole. It's so important that you plug that hole. Figure out what is causing you to have this issue. What's causing you to have this problem, and fix the problem. Do not worry about the symptoms of the sickness. Get to the root of the sickness. When filing bankruptcy, this is the type of talk that you should have with yourself. Who cares if no one else is listening? Who cares if someone else is listening? This is what you have to examine yourself. You do not want to keep doing the same thing that you've been doing and expecting different results. If you keep doing what you've been doing, you will keep getting what you've been getting. It's extremely important to examine your behavior, and we're going to talk about a budget. Yes, the first step after you file bankruptcy, you file bankruptcy for whatever reason you filed it, whether it's a Chapter 7 or 13, and you say, okay, Mr. Cole, I've done that, but now I want to rebuild my credit. What is the first thing I do? The first thing you do is, one, change your mindset. Think about what caused that negative habit. Think about what the situation was. Was it something that was out of your control? Was it the death of a spouse or the loss of the income? Whatever it is, try to make it a curable thing. If there are some things that are uncurable, life happens. No sense of spoiling over spilled milk. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep moving forward. Yes, you are able to pick yourself up. If you are fighting depression, you need to be in some place of worship every Sunday, every Wednesday, every time the doors are open. If you're fighting depression, you need to focus on reading inspirational messages, being around inspiring, motivating, positive people. You have to pull yourself off. I know it's difficult. I know it hurts. I know your body hurts. I know your pride hurts. I know you think you're going to run into somebody you know at the grocery store. All of those are ghosts and lies that are excuses that are trying to keep you bound. Most of the time, people don't know about your issues like you think they know about your issues. You need to be in somebody's house of worship on Sunday and Wednesday. You need to be in front of some motivational speaker, some type of motivational material. If you are fighting depression, change your mindset. There are people that are depending on you. You cannot afford to stay bound by negative emotions. You have to shake yourself off, dust off your feet. There are people that are depending on you. You have the ability to pull it together. Well, how can you say that, Mr. Cole? Because I cry myself to sleep every night, and I don't feel like getting out of bed. How is it possible you're able to say that I'm able to do this? I have faith in you because there is greatness inside of you, because you are taking the time to listen to a show on how you're able to rebuild your life, even if this is the first thing you've done since you've cried for 5 days. You are able to have victory over depression. I'm not telling you something I've heard. I'm telling you something I've done. I'm telling you something that I know. You have the ability to have victory over depression. Who cares if you gained 30 pounds? Who cares if you lost 40 pounds? You have the ability to change the way that you think by changing what you feed your thoughts. If you are by yourself, if you are having these negative, depressive, suicidal thoughts, change them immediately. Get up, dust yourself off, move, get around some positive people, get around positive messages. You are able to change that. You are not bound by your past. Your past is your past. You have to be ignited and inspired by your future. Remember, tough times never last, but tough people do. Remember that you have the ability, you have the power. There is a seed of greatness inside of you, and you are watering that seed of greatness by taking the time to listen to a talk show about your finances. And if someone encouraged you to listen to the show, and if someone suggested that you listen to the show, it's because they saw enough strength in you that you couldn't see in yourself. And you have enough faith. If you don't have enough faith in them, in yourself, have enough faith in them that they saw greatness inside of you, that to see that you're able to pull yourself out of this situation and you're able to be free from that. So the first thing you have to do after you file bankruptcy is change your mindset. Whether you have this mindset of you're living careless and fancy-free and you have all these negative habits, or if life has hit you hard and you getting yourself back up again. I've heard someone say that success is nothing but failing forward. Get yourself up, dust yourself off, keep going. You probably fall again, but the fall won't be as hard. You'll be able to bounce back. You will be resilient. You will be stronger. You're not the same person you were 2 years ago. You're not the same person you were 3 months ago. You're stronger. You're wiser. You are able to endure more than what you were able to do before. You have the ability to get results in your life. Change your negative habits if you have negative habits. Do not allow your negative habits to have you. That's the first step to getting free and bouncing back from bankruptcy. The second thing is to create a budget. I want you to get a pen and a piece of paper. On one side of the paper, I want you to write down your needs. On the other side, I want you to write down your wants. And be completely honest with yourself, the closest person to you. Get with the closest person to you, the person you can be the most transparent with, preferably your spouse. And if it's your lover and you're married, you need to cut that person off, because no good will come to you while you're living in sin like that. How can you expect to have a supernatural blessing from God when you have such a strong disconnect in what he calls the marriage institution? So if it's your best friend or your spouse or your coworker or a coach, get with them, get a pen and a piece of paper, write down your needs versus your wants. What are your needs? Needs are your physiological needs for life. You need shelter, housing. You need food. You need clothing. You need to take care of your utilities, your light bill, your gas bill. Let's talk about your wants. You really don't necessarily need an extra cell phone if you already have a phone. You don't necessarily need to have 2 cars. Think about how you're able to appropriate your wants and your needs. And then, if you're having trouble with that, come to my Facebook page. It's E. Dean Cole on Facebook. Go into Facebook. Go to the top. Type in E. Dean Cole, and you will see me. Add me as a friend, and you're able to take, there's a cool quiz that I have, that you're able to take a 5-minute quiz to figure out how to get control over your spending. If you're having a hard time or a difficult time creating a budget, come to my Facebook page. There is a quiz. It's a cool 5-minute quiz, and it will help you to create a budget. It is extremely cool. Look for us on Facebook. So you decide that you're going to create a budget. Now, I want to take a step back. If you're contemplating bankruptcy and you want to know how to get into the best position, if you have a credit card or you have a car loan, something that is manageable, do not include that in your bankruptcy. If you have 10 debts, leave one of them out so that you're able to continue to establish a good payment history. Make sure that you make those payments on time, before time. Like I said, there is a total of 21 items that you are not able to put into a bankruptcy, and I'm going to give you the top 3 that keep most people bound, that they do not know, and they file bankruptcy, and they should not. There is a total of 21 items that you cannot include in the bankruptcy, but I'm about to give you the top 3 bankruptcy in your bankruptcy. Okay, these are the top 3. Whether it's a Chapter 7 or a Chapter 13, you are not allowed to include taxes and tax liens. If you owe back taxes to the government, you are not able to include that in your bankruptcy. There is a loophole where if you have a repayment plan, and if you have a repayment plan and you made at least 3 to 6 months of payments, then you are able to include that in your bankruptcy. However, make sure that you consult a tax attorney before doing so, and also consult a good, high-powered foreclosure attorney, because they'll help you understand what are your state-specific guidelines for filing bankruptcy. Because filing bankruptcy in Maine is separate from filing bankruptcy in Atlanta, which is separate from filing bankruptcy in Africa, which is separate from filing bankruptcy in Europe. You have to make sure you get with a local attorney who is proficient in understanding the differences in your bankruptcy. So tax liens and back taxes, you're not able to include in your bankruptcy. Student loans. Student loans are most of the time, all of the time, government loans. And you are not allowed to include student loans with your bankruptcy. I know someone told you that you could, but you are not allowed to include student loans in your bankruptcy. And the third thing that keeps most people bound that they do not know is alimony and child support. You are not allowed to include alimony and child support when you file bankruptcy. These are things that you're not able to include in your bankruptcy. So if you're thinking about filing bankruptcy and you want to know how to position yourself, if you are not being a wandering generality but you're being a meaningful specific, that you're living your life on purpose and you say, well, I'm going to file this bankruptcy, but I'm going to be better because of it, not worse, and you want to know the first thing for you to do after you change your mindset is to leave something out of your bankruptcy, something that you're able to afford, something you're able to pay. And in most cases, most people have student loans. So get your student loans caught up. Pay 3 times the amount, your minimum balance, because all of your other debts are going to be wiped away. So it's important that you take the time to catch your student loans up and pay your student loans as if your life depended on it. That is the best way to start repairing your credit after bankruptcy. Now, a lot of people want to know who've never filed bankruptcy before, what is bankruptcy dismissal and a discharge? Now, there's a difference between a bankruptcy dismissal and a bankruptcy discharge. You can find this documentation on my Facebook page. If you're on Facebook, go up to the search, type in E. Dean Cole, and you'll see me pop up, and add me as a friend, and you can get this information, a hard copy, for you to see for yourself. But bankruptcy dismissal and discharge are 2 different things. A bankruptcy can be dismissed for various reasons, such as abuse, which is moral hazard, which we talked about, or failure to live up to a bankruptcy plan. That's if you have a Chapter 13 where you're making a payment. A discharge is the elimination of debt, which occurs at different times depending on what chapter under which the bankruptcy that you filed for, okay? So it's very important that you understand the difference between a bankruptcy discharge and a bankruptcy dismissal. Now, after discharge, this is what now I'm talking about this because we're talking about what do you do after you file bankruptcy. After you file bankruptcy, then you go past your discharge date and you start to rebuild your credit. If a bankruptcy case is not dismissed and goes to completion, a debtor may obtain a discharge. And the discharge is when you are not able to have any of your collectors or your debtors come after you. This is the goal when you file bankruptcy. You want to have your bankruptcy discharged. 99.9% of all people who file bankruptcy, they get their bankruptcy discharged when you do a Chapter 7. 99.9% of patrons who file bankruptcy get their bankruptcy discharged when they file Chapter 7 because they file bankruptcy on things as far as like credit card payments. I had a client come to me. He had 700 credit scores, had the highest credit scores that there were. He was working at Rooms to Go, and he just refinanced his home. And he called me after we closed and said, Mr. Cole, I am filing bankruptcy. And I said, why on earth would you file bankruptcy? You have 700 credit scores, and you have 700 credit scores, and you just refinanced your home. He said, well, I'm going to leave my home out of the bankruptcy, but my credit card bills are just too high. He had almost $40,000 worth of credit card bills. And he was in his home. He wanted them completely gone, and he wiped them out. His credit is still in the 700s because he left his mortgage on and he made his payments on time, and he completely wiped his credit card debt out. His credit card debt had gotten too much for him. He had been making the payments on time, but he and his wife was living off of credit. And so after his discharge, that's the Chapter 7. Now, the function of a discharge is the bankruptcy is to give the debtor a fresh start so that he or she can move on without being forever under the burden of scrupulous debts. Okay? That's the function of a discharge. The effect of a dismissal. A bankruptcy dismissal is a terrible thing because you're saying that you have violated the terms of your bankruptcy. It is absolutely terrible to go through a dismissal. If a bankruptcy case is dismissed, the automatic stay, which is basically saying that they cannot come after your goods or they can't come after your home, is lifted. And they come with all the horses, they come with the cavalry, and they try every collection method that can be when a dismissal is